Remember when we thought trade wars were so 2019? Yeah, well, buckle up because they're back, baby. President Trump, in a move that surprised absolutely no one, has slapped a hefty 25% tariff on all imported steel and aluminum. That means whether it's from China, Canada, or our buddies in the EU, that metal is getting taxed. Trump says it's to protect American jobs. Critics say it's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. Either way, get ready for a bumpy ride on the global trade roller coaster. This isn't the first time Trump has gone tariff happy, of course. Remember those tariffs on Chinese goods a few years back? Those were fun. But this time he's casting a wider net, hitting up pretty much everyone, and as we all know, when America sneezes, the rest of the world tends to catch a cold. So naturally the EU isn't taking this lying down. They've got a plan, folks, and it involves some serious economic retaliation. The EU, bless their hearts, tried to reason with Trump. They sent their best negotiators, offered olive branches, probably even threw in some fancy cheese and wine. But Trump, being Trump, wasn't having it, so the EU has decided to hit back, and they're aiming right where it hurts. American exports. We're talking about a phased retaliation plan that will target up to $28 billion worth of American goods. Phase 1 kicks off on April 1st. No, seriously. And it's bringing back some old favorites from the first Trump trade war, like those tariffs on bourbon, boats and motorcycles. Then on April 13th, get ready for Phase 2, a whole new wave of tariffs on things like poultry, beef, pork, soybeans, and even good old American booze. The message is clear. You want to play tariff games, America? Two can play at that game. Now here's where things get interesting. The EU isn't just randomly targeting American products. They've done their homework, and they're strategically aiming at goods that come from states that, shall we say, are quite fond of President Trump and his Republican buddies. Think soybeans from Louisiana, beef and poultry from Kansas and Nebraska, and all sorts of yummy produce from places like Alabama, Georgia and Virginia. These states are about to feel the pain of these tariffs, and it's going to hit them right in their wallets. The EU is hoping that by putting the squeeze on these states, they'll put pressure on their elected officials to get Trump to back down. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off. So, what does all this tariff tit-for-tat mean for the American economy? Well, the short answer is probably nothing good. Economists are already warning that these tariffs could lead to higher prices for consumers, slower economic growth, and even more of that pesky inflation that everyone's been complaining about. See, when you slap tariffs on imported goods, it makes them more expensive. That means American companies that rely on those imported materials like steel and aluminum have to pay more for them. And what do companies do when their costs go up? They raise prices for consumers, of course, and when prices go up, people tend to buy less stuff, which can slow down the economy. It's a vicious cycle, folks, and it's one that Trump seems determined to keep spinning. Section 5. Europe feels the pinch. Steel industry braces for impact. Now, before we start feeling too smug about the EU sticking it to Trump, it's important to remember that trade wars are rarely, if ever, a one-sided affair. The EU is going to feel the pain from these tariffs too, particularly their steel industry. The US is a big market for European steel, and these tariffs are going to make it a lot harder for them to sell their products here. That could lead to job losses, factory closures, and a general slowdown in the European economy. So yeah, the EU might be giving Trump a taste of his own medicine, but they're also taking a bit of a gamble themselves. Section 6. World leaders react from condemnation to cautious optimism. As the trade war drums start beating again, world leaders are watching with a mix of concern, amusement, and probably a healthy dose of here we go again. Some, like our friends down under in Australia, have condemned the tariffs, but are hesitant to get directly involved. Others, like the UK, are trying to play it cool, prioritizing their own trade deals with the US for now, but keeping the option of retaliatory tariffs on the table for later. Meanwhile, China, never one to miss an opportunity for a little geopolitical maneuvering, has promised to firmly defend its interests without actually saying what that means. Classic China. Section 7. Market jitters. Stocks do the trade war dance. As news of the tariffs and counter-tariffs spread, the stock market, that reliable barometer of global economic anxiety, did what it does best: freaked out. Well, sort of freaked out. Asian markets saw some moderate declines, while European stocks actually rose a bit, perhaps emboldened by their leaders' tough talk. The S&P 500, America's stock market darling, was up slightly in early trading but remained volatile. The overall sentiment? Cautious optimism mixed with a healthy dose of "we've seen this movie before," and it doesn't end well. Section 8. Talks. Please calls for negotiation amidst the tariff chaos. Amidst all this trade war posturing, there have been some faint glimmers of hope that just maybe cooler heads might prevail. Both European and American officials have made noises about the need for dialogue and negotiation. Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission, has called the tariffs harmful and urged the US to reconsider. Meanwhile, Maroš Šefčovič, the EU's Trade Commissioner, has said that while he's attempted to negotiate with the US, there's been a distinct lack of cooperation from the other side. Shocking, I know. Section 9. Trade wars, a lose-lose for everyone. So, where does all this leave us? Well, in the short term, probably with higher prices, economic uncertainty, and a whole lot of political grandstanding. In the long term, it's anyone's guess. But one thing is for sure, trade wars, as the saying goes, are easy to start and very, very hard to win. When countries start slapping tariffs on each other's goods, it creates a ripple effect that can hurt businesses, consumers, and the global economy as a whole. It also erodes trust between nations and makes it harder to cooperate on other important issues like climate change, pandemics, and, not blowing each other up. So let's hope that cooler heads prevail and that this latest trade spat doesn't escalate into something bigger and uglier. Because in the immortal words of the great philosopher Justin Timberlake, what goes around comes all the way back around.